Welcome to episode 81 of the Sports Geek podcast. On this week's podcast, I catch up with Matt Henry from the National Rugby League to talk all things rugby league, origin and the season ahead, kicking off very soon.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who isn't a famous archer. That's the other Sean Callanan.
Thank you very much, DJ Joel. That's right, my name is Sean Callanan, but no, I am not an archer. The other Sean Callanan is a Commonwealth Games archer based out of Ireland, funnily enough, and recently was in a car crash, and it's good to hear that he's actually getting better, but who doesn't Google themselves to find out who else is out there? My name is Sean Callanan, and you can contact me and engage with the podcast community by Twitter, at Sean Callanan or at Sports Geek. You can join us on the Facebook page /Sports Geek or join our ever-growing Facebook group. Simply send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, and I'll add you to that group. And like everybody else, I'm now on Snapchat. So one of my rules is always use the bloody tools. So I can't advise people about Snapchat if I'm not using it. So you can add me, snap me, send me something. Sean Callanan is my Snapchat handle. I actually do think the Snapchat story element does have some good parts to it that are quite valuable for the world of sports. The way I've been describing it lately with meetings with clients is using a chocolate bar here in Australia called the Flake, and the Flake's pretty much just all the scrap bits of chocolate, and that's pretty much the myth of what the Flake chocolate bar is, and that's pretty much how I'm describing Snapchat. It's the Flake of social media platforms. All the other bits of content that don't make it on any other platform, you can chuck them onto Snapchat, and they'll be added to your Snapchat story, and it'll all bind together to be something useful, something snackable for your fans to tune into. This week, I caught up with Matt Henry from the National Rugby League around some of the things that they've done in the past season, also in the pre-season here at the Auckland Nines using beacons, and also some of the stuff that they're planning for the year ahead for the season that starts later this week. Here's Matt Henry on the Sports Geek podcast. Very happy to be up in Sydney, a very wet and windy Sydney today, but I'm here at NRL headquarters, National Rugby League, and I'm here with Matt Henry. Matt, welcome to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Happy to finally be on here. We've been trying to get this rolling for a little while. So
we have. You just got to answer my emails, man.
It's fun to be able to finally sit down and have a chat.
So first of all, introduce yourself to the Sports Geek podcast audience. What's your role at the NRL?
So my current role is manager of digital and social media at the NRL. I've been here for more than 4 years, I think it is now, which seems like a long time within our team.
That's a long time in internet years.
It is, yeah. No, I've still got my GeoCities site up and running from when we first started.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes, will we?
Sounds good. No, I started here as club network manager, which was a weird name for just looking after digital for all the clubs and teams. Then moved on to a digital marketing role, and now just a wider digital and social strategy role within the NRL, working with all of our divisions and our partners as well. And a big part of, I guess, working for the NRL is that you're a couple of the key events that are the NRL the NRL runs. So you're overseeing the league and what that's happening, but from a marketing point of view, especially in your previous role, if it was a previous role of digital marketing, you're really focused on the big events of the NRL. And I've spoken about it previously on the podcast. Origin is one of the biggest sporting events in Australia. And so that's a pretty big focus. Has been a pretty big focus for your role and sort of expanding what you're doing from a social and digital point of view? Yeah, it has. There's a couple of different arms being there's a retail arm and a brand arm across that sort of digital marketing activity, and definitely major events, State of Origin being the biggest one, takes up a lot of that time throughout the year. So last year, State of Origin made up the top 3 most watched TV programs in all of Australia. So we had the same sort of results and ratios across social media engagement as well. So it's definitely a big beast. And for Origin last
the last 2 years, you've done the sort of the mission control style setup. What was happening behind the scenes for Origin games?
Yeah, so mission control for us was it was just as much an internal learning as it was an external one. There's discussions to move that to be a public-facing engagement sort of for fans at the game. Basically a room with lots of TVs and insights, lots of people working on social. But in short, we wanted to make sure that we upskilled and in sort of, I guess, increased our resources in line with how much discussions occurring on social through that time. So making sure that we engage with all the fans, and we ended up ranking and rating all tweets and conversation about social that happened with a real focus on influencers. So we had a whole influencer program ranking influencers and proactively approaching them or reacting to influencers already talking about Origin throughout that period.
So give us a case of an influencer and something that you might have done to reach them and get them to engage with Origin.
Sure. So an example is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, was on the Gold Coast filming Hercules and sort of talking about NRL and footy in general. He'd done some stuff with Bo Ryan from the Footy Show, and so we made sure that we created custom content for him that he might find funny or engaging for his fan base. And he ends up tweeting an image that we've created of him in Queensland colours, given his location at the time, saying, go Queensland, which he then retweets to, I think, around 7 million of his followers across the globe. So across our top 3 influencers that we engaged proactively, they ended up retweeting that content out to over 11 million of their fans cumulatively. So that's just from 3 influencers, of which we did over 100. So that program really, it made the reach, it increased our reach, and the conversation that we were trying to amplify went global for us. So that was a real win.
And it sort of gave you, more credibility in the market, and just show, hey, look, we're putting in more effort into this space to say, we know the conversation is happening out there. We're now part of it.
As I said, it was just as much an internal thing as it was external, because it was the first time we could show our business internally just how much conversation was occurring around Origin. The stats came back that the discussion was happening in 160 plus countries. So we sort of never been able to formally let our internal executives know that. And it was the first time we'd really invested heavily in social for one single event. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was definitely beneficial to allow us to see the brevity of conversation happening, and how many people we could actually connect with over a 24-hour period. The stats that came back after Game 2 of last year were that 8 million people, unique people, connected with us on Facebook alone. So needless to say, they were excited to invest further.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You've got to have these case studies that executives can understand, and sometimes it's simple to say, oh, so you're saying that The Rock retweeted and his 7 million fans, sometimes those stories are just as important as the graphs of here's everything that happened.
Sure.
Like, I'm getting people all the time saying, how do I explain how this whole campaign went? When sometimes at an executive level, yes, they need the graph of here's how many fans we engaged and this is where all the tweets went, but they also need that story of, oh, yeah, we had The Rock, we had Warney, we had these 3 comedians all join in, and that got the conversation happening in all these other channels as well.
It was the first time we split our resource to not just talk to fans or respond to fans, but create custom content for people that we knew could be influential in a new market that weren't just a long shot, but actually had some sort of connection or were actually talking about it themselves. So the Madden brothers is another example. Reggie Bush was over doing live Twitter takeovers for us, so we made sure that we created custom content for him, and several times he retweeted that out to his fan base. So we made sure that we were still looking after our traditional fan base and talking to the individual people who were talking to us, but splitting out that strategy to make sure that we were also proactively reaching out to influencers globally really changed the numbers for us.
And there was a whole bunch of activations at the stadiums as well to sort of make sure that all the fans that were there, the rusted on Maroons and Blues fans, knew, hey, share this hashtag. Your tweet's going to end up here, or your Instagram post's going to end up on the wall. Like there was projections at stadium and stuff like that. That was also there so it wasn't just an influencer only campaign. You're also hitting grassroots rugby fans as well.
Yeah, it's true. We had it was the first time we'd done live projections onto the side of ANZ Stadium in Sydney. So a lot of fans coming off the train, they'd see some of their tweets or their friends' tweets projected right up into the side of the stadium, which was a great experience for them as well.
So that's the social and the engagement side of it. But the other part of what you've been doing is the marketing and the sales point of view. And I know off mic, and we've been having chats over the last 18 months on what you've been trying to get done from people love the phrase cheeks in the seats. Getting more people into games. What are some of the things that you've been doing to drive ticket sales, get more people into games? Using some of the advertising platforms available.
Yeah, so we basically, I'm happy to let you know or give away the fact that we spend the majority of our digital marketing budget across Facebook activity. So targeted ads, sometimes boosted content, depending on what it is. But we've tried a lot of platforms and a lot of different channels. And we still have, display campaigns, retargeting, search, we do all that stuff. But we've just found the conversion rate and the ability to target and segment is sort of the best opportunity for that is across Facebook targeted ads. So we've had pretty good success last year across a range of initiatives. Custom audiences has been our friend.
Yep.
And lookalike functionality on Facebook similarly. So we've got,
and that's where it works really well from a league point of view, because for those who don't know what lookalike audiences is, Google it. But it tells you you've got Fan X, they love league. Tell us lookalike audiences, people who look like them, they have similar interests, and you can do it. It's tougher and that's why it also worked really well with the Asian Cup, because we were able to say, they're a football fan. Who are people like those people? It doesn't quite work, in Sydney or Melbourne where there's multiple teams, and you can't say, you're a Rabbitohs fan. Who looks like them? Because Facebook can't say, they look like a Rabbitohs fan, but what you find out, they're a Manly fan or they're a Cronulla fan. So lookalike audiences don't quite work at a team, like a micro level, but at a macro level and a national level, like that lookalike stuff is actually really powerful to be able to say, we know these are fans who are fans of the NRL and are liking our stuff, and then doing the lookalike stuff gives you a whole swag of more fans to either attract to your page, or also do the ticketing side of things.
Yeah, it's been really handy because we do have great data on our fans, and so it allows us to just. I think it benefits the user in the end because it allows us to be that much more targeted with our message, and therefore our conversion rate is that much higher across all of our activity. So an example for grand final last year and we had a $8,000 spend, which generated just over $130,000 in revenue, and it's the first time we've been able to sort of bring back those stats to our executive team. Because we've been able to do pixel tracking all the way through on our Facebook ads. So I'm not sure how much we've talked about pixel tracking.
Yeah, like for the people who've listened and caught up with, my chat with Matt Bartolo of the Asian Cup, we did the exact same thing. And, I must, say thanks to you because me being talking to you about, how we're doing it and that kind of stuff, I pretty much told Matt and, I know whether fight is the right word, but the determination you had to put in to get those pixels installed. And, I said it after the Matt one, I said, it's worth the fight.
It really, really is worth the fight. We've tried for a really long time to get tracking all the way through to purchase, which is just one of the things it's a bit of a tougher challenge when you don't own your own ticketing platform.
Yep.
But I can say it was worth the fight because a great example is we had a Manly campaign. And we were using it.
So it's Manly is a team. It wasn't
it was a
campaign.
Very Manly campaign.
So Manly is the Manly Sea Eagles who are in the NRL. So I won't cut you off there.
Yeah, Manly Sea Eagles. So they live on the northern beaches, of Sydney, and we had a campaign specific to the Sea Eagles team to try and get fans to go to games. And we had a particular ad that was targeting families that. If we weren't pixel tracking all the way through to purchase, we would have optimized against that ad. It was costing us, 2 or 3 times more than any other generic ad. what we found out in pixel tracking was that it was actually generating 6 times more revenue than any other ad. So we were finally able to tell that side of the story and know that we shouldn't be turning that one off because it was our highest performing ad in that bunch. So yeah, I can't. I can't.
That's the thing. Like the gold is in when you get the reports back and you match it all up, and then you go, oh wow, that one is causing group bookings, or that one is causing a whole family ticket, and we should be sending out more, because the optimization that Facebook does for you, with the optimized pixel, it will say, oh, it's they treat them all equal. If you can put the value in the pixel and know, but you don't know, because eventually the ticket buying happens at the ticketing end. You can't put the direct value on it, but once you get the reports back and that this ad particularly is driving in more revenue, you can keep saying, yep, turn that on, move that kind of ad to its own ad set and say, yeah, we're going to spend $50, $100 or whatever it is to that segment, to that fan base, because we know that they're returning X amount of dollars when they do click through. So, and
to be honest, that's why we keep spending, is because it's very rare that we can tell that story all the way through with such good conversion and an amazing targeting, which is what we need when we're trying to target specific fan bases in specific cities and areas. So
So I mean, and that's where I think the opportunity is there. Whether it's your own data and creating those audiences, you've got the audiences that are coming off people hitting your site. All of that kind of stuff. And then you've also got the lookalike audiences off the people who are purchasing, like people who are more likely to purchase. Let's see what they do. And there's all those variances you can do. But once you've got the data that you can track, did it work? And then you've got information to make those decisions.
I think from a creative perspective, it's just much more fun too. So we have the ability to upload, ticket holder data from last year. And the creative for the ad says, we know you went last year, support your team again this year. So it just allows us to have more fun with the creative. We can optimize that creative and we know what works and what doesn't. So, I've sort of a new convert to, lots and lots of data floating around.
So one of the things I did want to ask you, so Origin is obviously a big event, but another one that comes under your umbrella, or is NRL run and not so much club run, has been the Auckland Nines, which is the pre-season tournament over in Auckland, New Zealand. And Priya from Yinscam, who keeps saying that she's going to come on the podcast. She's harder to pin down than you. So you guys did some cool stuff with the guys at Yinscam at the Auckland Nines. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the Auckland Nines is a really cool event. It's really unique in that for our game at least, it's the only time that we have all 16 teams showing up to play over a 2-day period. So we therefore also have all 16 fan bases showing up.
Yep.
And so what we did at the Auckland Nines was we had some fun with a dedicated app, which had all the functionality you'd expect on a dedicated app for an event. But we also tested out some iBeacon functionality at the stadium. So the guys at Eden Park were nice enough to let us sort of stick iBeacons in and around their stadium and underneath all the seats. And
they're tiny little things. And what are they? Are they $12 a pop now?
They're about that. We had 2 different types. So one's sort of the size of a hockey puck, and they have a slightly larger range. And then the other ones are like small keychains, and they sort of spread out in and around the larger one. So we had the ability. We knew where we had the
because all the fans were in different bays, weren't they?
They were. Yeah, we had the fans set up so that we had specific fan bays for each team. So we knew that a certain bay, say it was Bay 106, was going to be a Brisbane Broncos fan bay.
Yep.
And we circulated all the beacons around those bays to make sure that we could talk to a specific bay and therefore a specific fan base at any one time. So it was really fun to be able to.
So were you doing things like sending specific messages, say, "Hey, Broncos fans," like what were kind of messages you were just testing out?
Yeah, so there's some generic welcome messages when people went through the main beacon at the stadium, but then there were more specific ones that, for example, when the Broncos won, we'd send out a message to that fan bay and say, "Congrats, Broncos fans! First one to the top of the aisle." To meet our staff there gets a free Broncos jersey. So we watched the race ensue as soon as the message went out, and just had some fun with more specific messaging and fan engagement for at stadium.
And how did the fans react? Because the beacon thing is the new bright shiny thing, right? And from our point of view, give it to a couple of sports geeks, and they want to let's see what we can do with it. And there's that balance of how much is pocket spam and how much is fan engagement and what the fans want. How did they receive that kind of thing?
Yeah, look, I think it was well received. I think it's still in its infancy as a technology, to be honest. And
that's where the Auckland Irons is pre-season. That's where stuff gets trialled. That's where things get gimmicked. So it's in that space. Not calling it a gimmick, but people are expecting trialling new stuff.
No, you're right. It's a perfect scenario for us because everyone's a little more relaxed. It's pre-season. It's a fun weekend. It's a nines tournament, so it's a little different to our traditional game. And fans are there. I think the stat is somewhere upwards of over 70% of fans are actually in costume, in dress up for this event.
Yep.
So it's definitely a party atmosphere and they're willing to try new things, which is cool. We give them the opportunity to opt in the app for these messages. So they're actually saying that they want them. And yeah, I think it was a pretty cool experience in general. I would say in summary that there's a reason everyone is saying they're testing iBeacon technology because it's not foolproof at the moment. And we found that it actually works better in smaller, more specific locations like a merch stand. But yeah, it's sort of being tweaked. And
so was there? Yeah. So were you getting like we come up with phrases? Were you getting beacon bleed?
Yeah, a little bit of beacon bleed?
Yeah. So you're getting people in other bays that are in the Warriors Bay or the Sea Eagles Bay getting Broncos messages and stuff like that.
Luckily for us, we put a little bit of space between our sort of geo areas or geo-fenced areas. But it's definitely hard to triangulate an area the size of a stadium with beacons. And sometimes there's a bit of delay as well on when that message would be received.
So from a technology point of view, what was the process? If you were to say, did you have because you had someone from Uniscam out there, did you say, hey, can we send a beacon? Well, have we got a term for it yet? Can we beacon those people? Is it a verb yet?
I'm not sure it's a verb just yet.
Okay, so did you say, can we beacon the people in the Broncos Bay? What was the process from that?
Yeah, so Priya was nice enough to let her staff fly over to Auckland. And I say nice enough because it was the day before the Super Bowl, of which they were also working on. So we were definitely lucky enough to have them on site. But yeah, we had a console and someone managing the console that put a message through to a specific geo-fenced area, and then we had separate staff waiting in that area if there was an engagement or interactivity involved. So yeah, it's fairly easy, just like sending out a text message or something like that.
The infrastructure is just there. They've got the tech that's talking to the beacon, and they've also got the beacon tech wired into the apps.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we triangulate the beacons, a couple of days before, and we did the testing to make sure all the sort of weaknesses and strengths of each beacon were perfected. And then it's as simple as sending it out and sending a push notification through the app.
So some of them were push, as far as they're just sitting there waiting to send out content. And then you also had some that say the guys the Warriors do, where it's you walk in, it was welcome. It was sort of like a passive. The app would detect that you're near and it would trigger something that wouldn't need to be promoted. That was like an active, I guess, trigger.
That's right. Yeah, we had triggered activity. Actually, I went and visited Kevin at Golden State Warriors only a few months ago.
I'm going to say happy birthday to Kevin because we're recording this on Kevin's
his birthday.
So
fantastic. Happy 21st, Kevin. No, we went into the Golden State Warriors merch store and got the lovely welcome video.
Yep.
And so we knew that was a really nice it was just a nice interaction, and so we did that at the stadium as well.
And so we are now taping this on Kevin Cote's birthday. Everyone now knows that. But we are, 9 days from the NRL season kicking off. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to doing from a digital point of view in the season ahead?
Yeah, for us, I think it's about refining our social strategy specifically. There's lots of noise out there, and we want to make sure that anything we're doing to the best of our ability. So for us, it's about tightening and learning from our or just learning from previous years across the main social platforms. We're also keen to start talking to new audiences and niche audiences as well. So we're
The elusive millennial.
Yeah, that's right. Hard to catch those millennials.
Yeah. So I mean, I did the recent Google Hangout with the guys on where to go and find them and how to go find them. Is are there any thinking about where you want to sort of tackle what platforms or what types of content and that kind of thing? You're still formalising that and where your head's at on those kind of things?
Yeah, obviously from a league perspective, it's sometimes harder to be it's harder to be funnier or have that slight edge to our content. So we have to be somewhat official. But we're as with any other team or league, we're monitoring the likes of Snapchat and Tumblr and Pinterest and hoping to sort of start to evolve into those spaces. We just want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way that actually benefits fans, not takes over in those platforms.
And it is funny, and I've spoken about Snapchat on this podcast before with guys like Richard at Arsenal. I think the development of the story stuff is giving it more validity, and I think, again, looking at it from a league level, from your point of view, look at what the guys at the NBA did, especially around the All-Star game, because it fits in that live experience, big event, because, Snapchat is great, but from a resourcing point of view, if you're not there, it's going to be pretty boring. And you don't have a team of 18 people that are going to be at all the games that are going to be sharing content, or you can't outsource it. You can't say send in your pictures and we'll work them on our Snapchat, because it's got to be there and then.
Yeah, that's right. And that, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as our major events is really the opportunity there to dabble in those spaces. And we can't ignore how big State of Origin is in Australia. It is simply the biggest sporting event. And so we've got a few tests that we want to roll out through that period, and a couple of sort of more exciting innovations that we're trying to sort of enhance from years gone by as well. So I won't go into too much detail.
No, we'll come back to you. Yeah. That'll be we'll do an Origin special.
That sounds good.
We'll do an Origin special. We'll maybe have it live on Snapchat, and we'll do a first podcast that's done live with the Snapchat video. So thank you very much. Looking forward to the season ahead. Tell us just before, while you're answering your phone, which always happens during the podcast, where can people find you online, and what are the key properties from an NRL point of view that people should be following?
Finding me, or
finding you, because people want to connect. People want to connect with my guests. I'm now into the second 100, so you didn't make the first 100 guests. So where can they find you on Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those kind of things, and then tell us all the NRL digital properties.
So I'm on Twitter predominantly at MattHenry22. You can also link up on LinkedIn. I'm there as well. I'm the guy with the funny face standing on the New York Knicks centre court. That's my current profile image.
Yep.
As far as NRL goes, the standard platforms, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, all on at NRL.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to the season ahead.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Sean.
Sign up for the Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/SGN.
Thanks again to Matt Henry for the chat on the podcast, and also, I must say, a big thanks for the back channel and the chats that we've been having recently around Facebook ads. As he said there, they're doing a lot of work and having a lot of wins in the Facebook ads side of things. And as I said on the podcast, in the chat there, big credit to him in some of the success that we had with the Asian Cup, because we implemented some of the similar strategies that I spoke about with Matt Bartolo in episode 79. Another thing, and it was more of an outtake after we turned off the mic, Matt was actually asking me how much time I spend on the podcasting and how much time I spend on the consulting. And he was sort of thinking that I did a lot of work on the podcasting side. I do a lot of podcasts. I push them out every week and try to keep the content going. But in the end, the podcast only pays a tiny fraction of the bills. My most of my week is working with clients around doing digital strategy and working on campaigns and things like that with guys like Matt at the NRL and things like, and working on new campaigns or strategies around ticketing, like with the Asian Cup, or more broader content plays, or working with the sponsorship team to better understand how to sell digital. So there we go. Just a little bit of a pitch. I sort of tackled that one early on in the career of a sports geek when I was blogging a lot and had to reframe people from saying I'm a blogger. I'm actually working on my business. And so with the success of podcasting, I don't want to be framed a very happy and proud podcaster, but I'm not a podcaster. I'm still always working on all things sports geek, but always planning on doing more stuff in the podcasting space. I'm just spreading myself very thin and doing my best to deliver on all platforms. On that, as well as being a podcaster and a sports digital consultant, I'm also a speaker, and I'm really looking forward to heading to London to attend and speak and present and bring the Seat community vibe to Seat London, March 17 at Lord's. If you are listening and you work for a team, there are still tickets available. And if you're interested in working with me, I'm going to do a special offer of an hour of consulting, pick my brain if you will, for any Seat attendees that are listeners to the show. So simply send me an email, Sean at Sportsgeek HQ. I will send you all the links to sign up and get your ticket, and also to get that bonus hour of consulting with me. Really looking forward to doing some of those sessions and finding out a little bit more about the UK sports scene, sports digital scene. We've got some great speakers coming in for Seat London. The guys from the 49ers are going to be talking about Levi Stadium. Got some people from the MLB. Just found out my good friend Todd Cafflish from the Detroit Red Wings is also coming over. So there'll be a lot of sharing across the continents. I'll be bringing some talent and some stories from Australia and around the world, but we've also got some great people coming in from the UK and from the US. So don't fear. There are still some tickets available. I've always put some aside for the Sports Geek podcast listeners, but please nab your tickets right now. And speaking of other events, when I do get back from London and the US and the trip that I'm doing down to Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, I'm locking in a date for SB Week down in Melbourne. Please check with Russell Scabetti's thebusinessofsports.com for a SB Week event in April 13. April 13 is the date we're going to hold it. I'm very happy to announce that it's going to be held at Etihad Stadium. So thank you very much for Sarah Brady for hosting us. We're going to get a bit of a technology tour of the new tech that's being rolled out to Etihad Stadium, and then take in a little bit of networking and do what we normally do at a Sports Business Melbourne event. So simply go to meetup.com and sign up for Sports Business Melbourne, and we'll be releasing the tickets and all the details, but save the date for April 13. And as I said earlier, I will be in San Francisco from the 20th to the 24th of March, catching a few games and a few meetings in preparations for Seat in July. And then also we're going to San Diego for Social Media Marketing World, run by the guys at Social Media Examiner. As I've said previously, it's one of the best social media conferences that I've been to, both from a networking point of view, but also to see and meet and catch up with some of the heavy hitters outside the world of sports, and seeing what they're doing in online business, also big brands, and how they're leveraging social media. And I think that's really important to jump out of sports every once in a while and try to bring some of those best practices back. So hoping to have a few interviews with people in San Diego. And if you are in San Diego, please hit me up. I'm looking forward to catching up with a few people based in San Francisco and San Diego while I'm in the US. So that's it. I guess one last thing. I want to say a big thank you to the guys at World Trotting Conference. I spoke at that conference in Sydney last week. If you've been following my Snapchat or Instagram, both at Sean Callanan, you would have seen a few nice photos from the Sydney Harbour. Thanks to Andrew Kelly and all the guys at the World Trotting Conference, talking about harness racing and how they can harness digital. And yes, I use harness twice in the one sentence, but it really is an opportunity for any sport to follow the lead of teams and leagues around the world and what they've done to connect with their fans. So that's it from me. If you've got any questions, got a question about the episode, or got a question of me, or if you feel like, yes, we want to roll out a campaign like the guys of the Asian Cup, or we would like a review of our content, or yes, Sean, we'd love to catch up when you're in the UK, please send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. And also, don't forget to send in your sounds of the game. Stay tuned for the end of this one. Thank you very much to Brian Gibson from the FFA, but also a big Sydney FC fan. The sounds of the game at the end of this podcast is from the Cove, from the big derby match with the Sydney FC Cove. Absolutely going off their head. So again, people like Sean from Halifax, who's in the Sports Geek podcast community on our Facebook page. He's. I'm looking forward to getting a sounds of the game from Halifax in basketball in Canada. So again, more the merrier, and from more around the world. So simply just take your phone out, record some audio, record some video. I can strip the audio out of that. Please send it through sean@sportsgeekhq.com. And don't forget, if you are in London, if you can make it to Seat London at Lord's, we've got Mike Gadding, renowned English captain. I'm going to get the set of Mike Gadding selfie with my Shane Warne selfie. He's going to be the keynote speaker at the dinner at the end of the night. Really looking forward to connecting with some old Seat friends. And there you go. There's my phone going off. You'd reckon after 81 episodes, I would know to turn my phone off. That's pretty much a good reason for me to stop. This has been episode 81. You can find all the show notes, all the links at sportsgeekhq.com/81. And again, I must say big thank you to everyone who's left an iTunes review. If you've listened to this episode, if you listened to previous episodes, and you do enjoy the Sports Geek podcast, please just take 5 minutes, 2 minutes even, just leave a quick sentence on iTunes. It helps with rankings, helps other people find it. But the best way is to actually share it and tell other people about the podcast. Okay, that's it from me. Stay tuned for the end of this for the Sounds of the Game from Sydney FC. But until next week or the next episode, because I know my schedule has been a little bit off kilter, my name is Sean Callanan from The Sports Geek. From The Sports Geek, there you go. How am I going? From sportsgeekhq.com, and you've been listening to The Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek podcast? Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsgeek. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Did you know Sports Geek Podcast has listeners in over 50 countries? Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.